Might have won the lottery. All right, we're gonna get started.
Chris,
Yes.
Beth and no Stephen tonight?
No Beth, Stefan.
Stefan's coming, okay. I was gonna pop over there if we had 2 empty seats, but it's all
Yeah,
good.
go ahead.
No, it's good, because Stefan is coming.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
all right, we're gonna call the special Seymour Board of Ed meeting to order. First item up is the pledge. Flag back here. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2 we have is a review of the proposed cuts. Yeah, we have these in the back. Everybody wants to grab it. It's also going to be up on the screen. I'm Chris Champagne, board chair, and we'll just do a little round table. For those that don't know.
Board Vice Chair.
Kristen Bruno, board member.
Stefan Bahuniak, board member.
Leanne Doherty, board clerk.
Dr. Compton, school superintendent.
Shannon Levy, board member.
Kristen Harmeling, chairman of our finance committee.
James Garofalo, board member.
It's Jamel, board secretary.
All right, so in the beginning, I guess I'll turn this over to Dr. Compton. We have a summary of all of the budget presentations, some information that dates back to some of the initial requests that we have and what brought us to this point today.
Okay, we'll very quickly review the slides, just an overview of where we're at, how far we've come, where we are, and just flat out open communication for anybody who has questions or don't seem to know the answers. I would like to say on this PowerPoint, Mr. Gucci, our business manager, worked very diligently with me in telling the story. You might want to come on up here closer so as we talk about this, and then the Board of Ed will also be open in regards and giving some comments with this process. As we all know, it was a lengthy process. We started on this back in November, December with needs assessment. But let's just talk about, why are we here? It's all about our children, preparing our children for the future. Our kids are our most precious asset. And the most important thing in a town is the quality of the public school system. So I just want to mention that. As we move on, we'll talk about, again, what is the mission of Seymour Public Schools. You can do the slide there. So, with the mission, it's always definitely to, with the learners, to educate and inspire. Are you having trouble there?
I'm projecting this on YouTube, so I'm doing the slides on YouTube.
Okay. I think everybody's pretty much familiar with our mission, because you want the kids to be able to meet the needs in an ever-changing world of local society. So there is our mission. What's our purpose? Well, we know basically it's to be good citizens on what's best for children. And again, our vision that every student will achieve success and graduate as a lifelong learner. We want them to be globally competitive, prepared for college, career, and life in general. So these are just some events that happens to be for a select one. I'm glad you're here tonight, San Maria Granis. That was when we moved into the board office. In case the community doesn't know, I know the Board of Ed went through a lot with this, this move. We moved on November the 11th, we saved money. We were basically, we needed to get out of Bank Street and out of that building. And out of all of this, there was long-range savings. Okay, so I just want to emphasize that. As we talk about the vision and strategic plan, the last strategic plan that was done here for Seymour was done in 2018. Kristen Hartley, you were an active member of that committee. And basically, when you talk about goals, the main one, of course, is student achievement, engagement, the curriculum. The other is what is the climate and culture, and also what's community involvement. We want our citizens, our parents, we want you to feel valued, we want you to also feel that if you've got questions that we're going to answer. I don't know the answer to everything, but I'll do my best. If I don't know, I'll try to find out. What are our core values and our budget goals? Well, first of all, the most critical work happens in the classroom. As I said to one group I addressed, the kids are not going to remember in many cases, especially little ones. They don't care principals and teachers needs assessment lists, because you know what? The budget, we knew that we couldn't. The only thing that we did at all was add one preschool teacher. One preschool teacher. Out of all the needs assessment, that's what happened. We did take IXL, which our kids have benefited greatly from the elementary. They're already doing it middle school and high school. Our little ones have value from IXL. It's a software program that reinforces skills. Another thing in regards with needs assessment is our rising cost of special education out-of-district tuition. Dr. Boyle is with us tonight. There's rising costs in special ed, not only in the state of Connecticut, but throughout the country. And we're not getting any more funds from Connecticut or from the federal government. And we owe these kids an appropriate education. We have to, but we need to also address, gifted education is also special needs. Because you go from the most neediest, sometimes the most gifted, or also fall under that special population. Another thing that we did have to do is that we had to get a shot clock. So instrumental, well-educated Dr. Compton on why we needed that with the new changes with the athletic rules, and we did do that. So I will tell you what this Board of Ed did in regards with track and field equipment. We didn't have track and field equipment for many years, and we figured out a way when our associate superintendent got a new position in Woodbridge as superintendent, we were able to take a few months' salary and pay for track and field equipment. I'm just going to call it for what it is. The kids have benefited, it was good, and that's just something this board tried to prioritize. As Stefan had said, Dr. Compton, I was on the track team. I know the importance. So the board did that. Here you can see all these dream lists. A lot of places have instructional coaches. I don't know if you've studied school systems lately, but get on there and look and see what all these other places have. They have layers of support. They really do. We don't have that. We're cutting down to the bare bones. As I had a discussion today in First Select Woman's office, we talked about where are we, what we need. We don't want to take this system and take it lower to the, we can't do that. What were the budgeting? What was the challenges? Health insurance premiums. Mr. Bucci and Chris Pelosi did a tremendous job of negotiating from switching our health coverage. We went from Anthem to United Healthcare, and we got it down to basically zero. Now, next year, will there be higher premiums? Absolutely. But at one point, it was almost, what was it, Mr. Bucci, $800-some-thousand?
It was $916,000.
$916,000. That's why the budget started out with 7.2, and people were saying, are they crazy in Seymour? I don't think so. That's the highest budget increase I ever dealt with, but that's why we had to do it till it was resolved. Another thing is contractual agreements. That's something you have to meet. And they're up on the website. And you might want to say, well, what does this teacher make? What does this principal make? You want to know? We have all that in the contracts. Another thing that we had to do, so when you look at certified and non-certified, that came up to a 1.6% right off the top. Then you've got payroll taxes, energy costs, and also with the buses. We did get the best contract. You have no idea how this Board of Ed, and we negotiated with All-Star. And we ended up, I truly believe, and I would say this publicly again, anywhere, we got the best contract with All-Star in the state of Connecticut, and we worked on that. Because you know what? The man that owns that company had a very close connection with Seymour. It was dear to his heart. He was here in the 80s, and he's still overseeing and working with All-Star. Okay, budget progression. We've been here a lot with meetings. January the 17th was the first budget approval. January the 11th was a working session. This board met for a long time. March 15th, in regards, again, looking at the budget, trying to bring down the reduction in the health benefits, okay? Then by March 21st, we had to reduce the budget by $516,000 after the Board of Finance met and said, you've got to bring it down, okay? We brought it down to 3.8%. What happened in that? Elimination of staff. We had to get rid of a music teacher, a very good teacher. I had to go and give her a paper saying, you're not going to be renewed. Think that's not hurtful? You have a job one day and the next day the superintendent's coming to give you a letter to say, sorry, we can't employ you for next year. Not based upon her ability or in the classroom. It was all about just reduction. Another thing, reduction in facilities and cost. Reductions in office and supplies, all that is listed, and a complete breakdown you'll see on the PowerPoint presentation. Another thing, the Board of Finance meets again on, they did on May the 8th, and the recommendation was to cut $434,000. We had a meeting on May 15th. We talked about suggested items to cut. Okay? Now, you can also see basically the line item increases on the next slide. It's just what all is involved in the line items and what are the percentages. When you're talking about personnel, folks, it's 79% of your budget of the whole pie. So we listed everything there. This actually was Mr. Bucci's chart. So let's move on then, how we went with trying to cut $516,000. I'm telling you, we trimmed everything we could, item by item. This board worked for 3 hours trying to see how they could less hurt children. So, basically, this was the step. So here's what was involved. These were all of the March revisions. Just going back. I guess we can go back through these again. We did cut building repair and maintenance $130,000. Equipment repair and maintenance is dealing with the pool, and that's also, the town is involved in helping us with that as well. Electricity. We all know the electricity went up. We have gotten good news that it is finally, it's going to go down a little bit, and the percentage is not going to be quite as high, so we'll talk about that as well. BCBA, we had to cut one contracted BCBA and then one that's hired by the district. We've had to just cut it out. We're looking at a part-time, not sure how we're going to supplement. Then conferences, we cut $10,000. Nobody's going nowhere. I don't go to a national superintendent conference. If I did, I'd pay for it myself. Okay, instructional supplies. How could we less hurt kids? We looked at all of the schools and we cut basically by $20,000. Benefits, $43,000. Instructional supplies with special ed. These were more like office supplies, things that the district was dealing with, and Linda Bellavance helped us on that a little bit. Music teaching. Here was the one that, like I said, we cut. Long-term subs. Our principals and staff would have liked to have seen 3 long-term subs. We had to cut that. That's just good having a substitute in the building. Then taxes, and then we got into May 8th. Now, the board didn't officially take official action, but this is basically the areas after another 2-hour discussion of what we talked about. This is important for everybody to know. We are trying to cut the budget, trim the budget. What does this mean? Custodial overtime. You think, how can you cut it $100,000? Well, one situation is, okay, coaches, parents, everybody out there, no Sunday and no holiday athletic practices that require the use of schools. Because it's in the contracts, they come in, they open the buildings, you've got to have custodial coverage. Another thing, limit the Saturday practices to 4 hours. All of these teams have to work within the window. We had this past year a part-time secretary. The high school lost 2 secretaries last year. Not this year, but last year. We did cuts even last year. So, no part-time secretary. Social studies teacher. We've got somebody moving to another state. They resigned. We're not going to replace them. They're going to make it work here at the middle school the best they can. They're going to combine social studies and special ed. Employment benefits, technology, reductions of $34,000, equipment non-instructional $75,000, and then electricity $40,000, and then bus fuel $26,000. We talked a whole lot about property maintenance. I brought the recommendation to the table, and I was wrong. I said, just cut another $100,000 from the buildings. Just don't do no maintenance. And I said, well, let Ms. Anne Marie, first select woman, the town take care of it. Well, you know, they're in the shape we're in as well. So we decided, we got to have at least $100,000 and more for the windfall. Mr. Bucci said, Dr. Palmer, please, you got to reconsider that. What happens if the pipes bust, and where are we? You know, we're in a mess because you have to have Plan B, okay? But I already got maintenance. It's not my area of strength, this facilities, I'll just tell you. I'm an instructional person. Okay, so here's the summary. When you really go to the back of this PowerPoint presentation, I think you want to know the true facts, you know, what is costing what, and just a whole budget progression. This is where it is, folks. Here are our major expenses. Certified, non-certified staff is 1.1%. We have to live by the contracts. Special education, tuition, and transportation, 1.1%. Here's another big, special education contract services. You have to give kids OT and certain services. You can't deny a child what's in his in his IEP. You cannot. Then energy increases. Cat property and the insurance, Chromebook rotation. Every child in this school district has a Chromebook. It's important. It was a great initiative when it was done by the Board of Ed. Back with COVID, it's crucial, it's important. Tell a district that doesn't have one-to-one now. If they don't, there's something wrong. They're not in the 21st century. So you look about instructional materials. You know, where are we there? And then the board budget. Here's where we are. The referendum, the vote is tomorrow night. Folks, you know, we're down to 2.5%. We can't really survive on 2.5% because we have cut to the bone. To really put the district to where we need to be, it needs to be 3%. So basically, this is where we are. We're being honest. We're being open. I hope that people realize about contracts and not knowing what people's salaries were. I'm sorry if some people felt like they were led on and wanted to see everybody's salary. I do want to tell you, this board offered to give me a raise last summer. I didn't take it. I'm not taking a raise, okay? I'm an older lady, been at this for 40-some years. I didn't come to Seymour just for the money, okay? I made a lot more in New Jersey. Somebody said, why did you come? I had 3 districts in New Jersey, and I loved them, but I had 3 boards of ed, 25 board members. And I decided, I don't want to do this every night, every day. But guess what? We spent a lot of time here this year, a lot of meetings, same thing last year. We went through the budget issue. Everybody knows we came up short, $600 and some thousand. They had to bail us out because there was a mix-up with the insurance premiums. The previous people didn't budget right in the budget. Everybody was being honest. People make mistakes. That was a big mistake. But you know what? We have overcome that mistake. We have hid nothing. We're transparent. That's who we are. And I don't want people to have any misunderstanding. I do want you to go out there and research other school districts, because I can tell you one thing, they're getting large increases. Because you know what? Things are going up. Inflation is terrible right now, 17%. But you know what's most precious? We got to educate our kids. You've had a great school system in Seymour. I don't want to be a part of the legacy of running it or taking it down and making it substandard. That's not who I am. That's not who they are or who you are. As you think about, some of you are graduates from the system, be proud. Be proud. But don't let it go under. We're in a tough time, I understand, but we need to support our schools. So that's my summary.
All right, before we get to the question and answers, anybody echo Dr. Compton's comments?
I just want to say thank you for reviewing the entire process. I think that was a great thing for people to hear and understand. And, you know, some of us on this board have been through this type of budget environment many, many, many times, although it was quite some time ago. It was back 2000, probably 10, 11. So we're trying to adjust. This has caught me personally a little bit by surprise. So, you know, we're trying to adjust, and I think this was a great step forward in making sure people understand. I will say that it is hard when no one comes to our meetings all year, then all of a sudden we are attacked. So hopefully this is a new beginning and a place to move forward from. So thank you for the summary.
All right, I was hoping for a lot more people
Same.
out there tonight, but we're going to move on to question and answer. I just want to remind everyone, we don't discuss personnel matters, but I think we can have a pretty good
There is
dialogue.
one other thing I
Yes.
did forget. There is something very important I did forget. I kind of call it the elephant in the room. There's been discussion all over town, administrators, superintendent salaries, about administration. You know, the board, I recommend to the board has final say. 99% or 98% of the time, the board usually supports me. I've not really seen a time they haven't supported me, let me say that. But this is something that we are possibly definitely going to recommend in regards of not filling an administrative position right now, not for next year. But that's something the board and I have to talk about, because that's the board's final say, not the superintendent. We have a process to where people can be transferred, and we do what we got to do. But, you know, everybody's salary and insurance and all that on top of it, I just want people to know we're trying to be conservative as we can be. So I think the elephant that's been talked all over town is about an administrative position. You know, why can't you move a principal here, assistant principal, whatever. So that's going to be my recommendation to the board. Sorry about that, I forgot that.
No, you're fine. All right, so we have a podium with a microphone, and we will entertain any questions from the public. Please just state your name.
I guess I'll lead off, everybody. Scott Lazar, 1 Elaine Drive. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for having this meeting right before the budget. I know there was a lot of people that had a lot of questions. We weren't really sure what was going on. And there was, on my part, I saw a lot of, like, where are they getting these figures from? It kind of makes sense. So I'm glad you guys had it. A lot of questions that I kind of wanted to ask, I didn't want to take all night with everybody's questions, and I encourage people to come to this meeting if they had questions, as there was various social media outlets that were in the background talking about everything. So I just have 4. I limited to 4 for you guys. I didn't want to go crazy. Do you want me to ask them one at a time? Or?
Nobody else got up, so.
I just want to know if you could explain the process of how the contracts get approved. Is it solely BOE, or is it BOE with the school administrators or lawyers for school? How does that actually work?
So
when the contract comes up, who has the final say in those contracts?
So we have 5 contracts. We have secretaries, teachers union, administrative union, custodians, and parents. And nurses. What happens is when the contracts are getting close, usually within a year, we like to start bringing the negotiation committee, liaison committee of Mr. Winiak, Mr. Bruno, Mr. Happ.
We sit down with our board attorney, Dr. Compton, Mr. Bucci, I'm sure
HR director.
HR, Chris Pelosi comes, HR director, and it's back and forth. One side brings what they want, the other side brings what they want. But to answer your question is if both sides agree, then it comes to us and we approve it. If there is conflict and nobody comes to an agreement, then it goes to mediation, and which is an independent person comes and talks. You know, we've got one person in one room, one person in the other room, and then if there's still not an agreement, then it goes to arbitration, and that decision is final. You want to add anything to
I
that?
would just add that the contract negotiation is just not about salary increases. It also includes benefits, it also includes working conditions. So there's a representative, members of the union, their attorney, and then the groups that Chris explained. And again, it is back and forth. There's research done that compares, different contracts, different arbitration awards, so we know what we might be looking at. So it's hours over weeks. It's a lot of time invested. And good faith on both sides, because we all ultimately want the best for students, but it is a process.
And every contract got 2.25%. There wasn't, everybody got 2.25%, which is low in terms of what we know is happening throughout the state.
And the teachers was done a year before, and that went to mediation.
It went beyond mediation to a
Yes, on to
stipulated
the
agreement.
next one.
Can you just talk about if it goes into arbitration, that there is then an additional cost factor?
Right.
You know, once we go to mediation, then there's split costs between the board and the union. But go ahead. No, I'll let you know.
I think you said it.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much said, yeah, if there's no agreement, then lawyers get involved, and we all know that increases the cost.
Technically speaking, the administration has no say. It's on the
Right.
Board of Education. All on us. Yes.
Good, I've not sat on the liaison committee, but I wanted everyone to know that the board does have interaction. So the liaison committee will come and they will get feedback and input from board members at large. So we all have an opportunity to express what we would like to see in contracts, and then we have to trust and put our faith into the hours and hours. It is probably the hardest committee to be on as a Board of Education member.
Time consuming, more than any,
Extremely
probably more than the
time-consuming.
board as a whole.
So when they've done their jobs, it would be very unlikely that it would come back to the board and the board would vote it down, because we have been kept abreast of progress and setbacks all along the way.
If it does go to arbitration, we don't have any say in the matter. That decision, it's final. Yeah.
And the way arbitration works is that both sides present their last best offer and one wins. You don't get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You either win or you lose at arbitration.
So I guess it kind of blends into the second question, so you kind of already answered. So it's basically up to your discretion to say, this is a good contract, this is a bad contract, let's work with this or not work with this and see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, they take historical.
Take what's, the current market, if you want to use that word, and just, if both sides come out happy or one side comes out happy, it was a bad contract. Both sides should be a little disappointed.
Right. I wrote it down, it kind of sounds silly, but I wrote it down, so you have to read it. Maybe you can go crazy this morning, and I caught me. The general consensus I get a lot is that the Board of Ed doesn't want people to come to meetings. And I understand you guys don't think that way, because I've heard you guys all say you don't think that way. I'm not saying what I get is feedback. Whether people come to my store or I just talk to people out in public, they're like, hey, what's going on with this? I know when we had the meeting here in the auditorium, it
that wasn't a board meeting, though. That was,
I understand that, but it's representative of the board.
and
The board members that were making comments.
it's a town hearing. It has, yeah, we're one of the discussion points, but it's not hosted by us. It's not our meeting.
What I mean is it's representative of the board, because it was a board member that was doing it. So people get a certain kind of way about it. Wasn't me, I don't care, I get skipped, doesn't matter to me.
I mean, technically, the only people that are allowed to speak are residents. Am I correct?
But when they were speaking, they were hearing people that were sitting.
Yeah.
And I get it, it's an emotional day, and people get tied up with what their priorities are.
But
Nobody's not writing
to your question, I mean, no offense, but very familiar faces out here. Would love to see it quadruple. I mean, we hear what we want to hear, not what we want to hear, but we get a lot of the information from the superintendent. You know, a lot of times we don't know what's going on 100% in all the buildings or what people are saying. I hate Facebook. The past couple months I've gotten on there more than I ever want to be on there. But that's what we have to do now, apparently. But it would be stupendous if every one of these chairs were filled. But even last Thursday, you had made a suggestion, we should move it to the auditorium, and I told you.
I would rather saw that too, because more people should get involved, they should keep quiet maybe. I would agree with you on that.
If I may, perhaps I'm someone you're referring to. I've been guilty of mixing it up in the Facebook comments. I would say the main thing that I've mixed it up with people in the Facebook comments is about getting involved earlier, because a lot of people have shown up at the 11th hour and proclaimed to be experts or not. And as the presentation here showed, this process started in January. Everything has been done in public, dozens and dozens of hours, both here and at Town Hall. And frankly, this is more people than usually show up. So it's online. There's minutes posted. None of this is hidden. It's a year-round process. Contracts are approved when they come through. If you aren't privy to this information, I hate to say it, but it's not on us, right? There's plenty of information. This is as public gets. We move different meeting times to try to accommodate people's schedules. We start our meetings at 7:30, which to me is crazy late because we often go till 11 o'clock, but we do that so parents can get here after dinner and be able to accommodate their children. We do everything in our power to get people to these meetings, and 99% of the commenting, the rudeness that happens at public meetings is not from members of elected boards. I'm very confident in that. I've been involved a long enough time to be very confident in that. So I'm not saying that you're saying that personally, but I think your information is bad.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have to applaud Dr. Compton and our administrative team. I think that their initiatives have brought more people, in front of us that we've seen in a long time. And I think that's great. And I think that just because they're here to receive an award doesn't mean that they shouldn't also voice a complaint if they have it. And I hope that people aren't just turned away. They're thinking, oh, I got an award, I don't want to say anything. Please, speak up. If you're here and you have a complaint, please do so. But I also think, with Mr. Champagne's leadership over the last couple of years, even during COVID, we've become more accessible for people. I mean, we all have email accounts that everybody has access to, and our doors are pretty much open, I would say, for accessibility. And I'm not saying that you personally are saying that, but I mean, I think that we've come a long way than in the last 15 to 20 years of, from when I was a student rep to the board to now. We've come a tremendous way for accessibility. And so if people, feel that they're not invited, I hope that they would take a second look at that. And, we'd love to have them and to hear what their opinion is.
Yeah, and all of our mugs are on the website. You see my big head on there. My email address is there. If anybody ever has a question, there's probably 25 people here. There's only 16 watching online. You can make a post on Facebook in an hour, you'll have 10 times that of people commenting.
I would also extend, there are three main boards in town. There's the Board Board of Select Persons, there's the Board of Education and the Board of Finance. And I remember way back at the beginning of the process, the Board of Finance encouraging our board to attend meetings, to go to the workshops, and many of us did. There was a pretty good showing from the Board of Ed. I have not seen, we do have select people, select persons attend our board meetings. The first select woman is often and almost always here. Haven't seen a lot of Board of Finance members at our meetings, so I would just like to reciprocate that invitation that they offered to us, that it would be great to have them attend our meetings all along the process as well.
And we've talked about maybe seeing how we could do it legally, where we have our little joint meetings, like a town forum kind of thing with select persons, Board of Ed, Board of Finance, and just have a question and answer. Or, you know, hey, this is what we've done in the past 3 months. So we're trying to do that, and as long as we don't have quorums, I think it's fine.
That might be really good to start the next time this budget process starts, a town hall type of meeting represented with the different constituent groups.
The last question I had, I don't know if it's scuttle or if it's true, that's what I'm asking, so I can clarify. I received a message on social media asking me why do the teachers pay more for their benefits than the administration do, percentage-wise?
The teachers, can you, Mr. Bucci, address that? I don't know the percentage.
They gave a percentage number, but I don't know what it was, and I don't want to say out of line about that.
Well, there's several other factors. For instance, teachers do not get contributions into their HSA accounts. Administrators do not get contributions into HSA accounts per se as part of their benefit package. To the point that was being made earlier by Ms. Bruno, when you look at one of these contracts, there are maybe half a dozen or 6 items that are really key toward negotiating that contract. One is the required number of days that you spend in the school. Another one is how many required days you have to do professional development. Others are relate to things like working conditions and the number of reviews and things like that. So the administrators, the teachers, the nurses, the custodians, the paras, all of them have nuances in their contracts that are really germane to that particular collective bargaining group and to the actual performance of those tasks. A long time ago, when contracts were being put together, it was decided that for administrators, they would forego that one benefit of having that contribution into their HSA in exchange for a lower rate. Teachers, on the other hand, would pay more because maybe they're actually enjoying a much higher pay scale in Seymour than they might otherwise enjoy going to another district, and that's just been a function of, and also it has really helped the retention of teachers in Seymour in terms of the ability to keep teachers, not have a lot of transition, not have a lot of turnover. So it's very hard to look at, and we went through this with collective bargaining, it's very hard to sit there and say the teachers got it, but then the custodians, and then the other group got, and then it's like, but you can't look at everything and say it's apples and apples, because it really isn't apples and apples. And so it's a trade-off. It's probably the short answer I could have given you right at the beginning, but it's a trade-off in that you look at the various components, the value of those components to that collective bargaining unit, and say, okay, that's important to this group, but maybe not as important to that group. And that's how this all comes out in the wash. And to the point that was made earlier, the success in the collective bargaining effort was to avoid any mediation and arbitration, because that's expensive and it's binding. And that is not a deal, to Mr. Champagne's point earlier, that makes either side happy.
I just want to be clear about sort of the underlying idea behind that question, and that is, and the actual negotiations are confidential, we can't talk about, but looking to equity across the contracts, because this board believes every single employee of the district is important. Regardless of what their role, everybody is valued and everybody is important. So yes, we try to think about equity, we try to get to a certain place. How we get there may take time. So you don't get everything in one round of negotiations. You have an idea of this is where we want to go, but different contracts may be different places in getting there. But I want to be very clear that no bargaining unit is valued more than any other. Everybody is important. We can't do what we do for kids without every single person. Yep.
It takes all of them to make a great school system.
That's all I had. I don't envy you guys. I really think you're trying your best. I do believe that. And I thought it was tough on P&Z with the whole thing we went through before. I'll stay over there. And as a graduate, I did graduate class of 96. My kids both love their teachers. So they're doing a good job.
Scott, Amber, are you coming up?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Would
We got a big voice.
Hand her the
Oh, I can go, so she didn't have any money.
Oh, no.
I probably got it loud enough
I
now.
thought it was cordless, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Can you hear me from here?
Sure.
No, but they may not hear me. So, I've said this a couple of times at the meetings that I've been at, and I want to say it again because I think it's important every time, especially this environment where you guys are facing a lot of criticism that otherwise would be behind your backs, and now it's publicized on social media. So I want to say thank you. Thank you. You guys volunteer your time. I guess if we broke down your salary that everybody's criticized so much, Dr. Compton, if we broke it down hourly, it would probably be significantly less than many people think that you deserve. Significantly less than they think you're getting paid. So thank you. I also wanted to put a point of clarity on the question about the contract negotiations, because I don't think that the issue that the general public has is with the percent of increases. They have an issue with seeing the sticker price. And so I just want to make sure that the public is aware of what the possibility is in the future, in future contract negotiations, of ever bringing that sticker price down. Because I don't know about you, but my employer is never going to bring my base salary down. I know this is a public government position, but at the end of the day, we are trying to pay competitively, just like any other industry that we're in. So my question is, when renegotiating contracts, do you look at reducing overall salary compensation from the current line that they're at?
No, I don't believe so.
I'm pretty sure that will get us
Yeah.
pretty quickly to mediation and
The
So
only thing that can be done is when someone moves on, you can offer the position at a lower rate. I'm not commenting if that's a good or a bad thing to do, but legally that's our only move. I will comment if it's a good or bad thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing because you get a lower quality of candidate, and then you might have to turn that position for a while, and you don't have stability. There's a trade-off in everything, and everybody just wants to look at one bottom line number, and there's so much more to the story, and there's so much more that you could learn by being involved in these meetings earlier and understanding the whole of the picture. Not speaking to you personally, you're at every meeting.
Well, I'm not ever me, but I just wanted to make that clarity so that when this goes out on Facebook or where it's publicized, that the accurate information and the expectations are aligned properly, because we're not going to lower salaries. Like, that's just not going to happen. So that's the reality of the world, not just Seymour, Connecticut.
We can slow down
The
the
increase.
trajectory, which we.
I think you've already successfully done that. Second, in regards to the publicizing of these meetings, I think since I've been coming to these meetings and getting more involved, I have said we have to try to figure out a way to make them more aware to the public. And this is not an accusation that you guys are not reachable. I think we've all learned through this process that people want the information handed to them. With the way that the internet has become and social media has become, people are very lazy. They don't want to go seek out the information. They want someone to post it on Facebook so that they don't have to put in the work to actually do the research and find it out. Hence the FOIA request, how to get a FOIA request. Maybe an FYI page on Facebook, because I think Facebook, the Seymour, Connecticut Schools Facebook page is probably way more visited than your Board of Ed webpage is. And so maybe doing an FYI, hey, if you want this information, like an FAQ, this is when this meeting is, this is when you should come, this is the timeline of things, just so we can make sure that people actually get here. Because looking for the answer on social media and listening to on YouTube. I understand people have transportation issues, and expecting someone else to relay the information is only creating a bigger miscommunication amongst the community. And the last thing I want to say is, Dr. Compton, I think that you have done an amazing job. I think you've inherited a pile of you-know-what from our previous superintendent, and I think that it just started now because of the economy, and you're getting a bad rap for it. So every time I've interacted with you, you've been nothing but pleasant and caring about all of the children, and I want to commend you for the job that you've done. Oh, sorry, Amber Burden, 18 Edgehill Terrace.
To touch to the point, and I won't bother Derek right now, we are
Going through a site redesign, it's going to look a lot better.
Yes.
The information is going to be a lot more accessible and easy to dig through. Right now, some of the things to get to, you need 5 or 6 clicks. You know, I don't have a complete timeline, couple
He's
weeks.
he's
Got a
really
couple weeks
ready.
left?
He's
Coming
really
soon.
ready to roll it out. You're going to love it. The clarity is so much better. The Communications Advisory Committee got to kind of use some ideas, but the Board of Education has wanted this for a long time, and I think they're really going to love it. But he's ready to roll it out. I think, too, that all school districts, Amber, just to emphasize COVID, the changes with March 13th, 2020 changed the world. And I think school districts and just the revolving of where we are now, we lost 2 years in a lot of ways. And a lot of things were just moved backwards. And our kids and everyone suffered from that. And we're now finally recovering. But like I said, those COVID years were just tremendously hard for everybody.
I've been fighting this fight since 2009 with a couple of board members as well as a couple of people who aren't on the board anymore. It's sad for me to be up here when I don't have a kid in the game. My child is going into his junior year of college, graduate of Seymour, plays football in a D3 school, still has friends, still has teachers that he talks to from Seymour. I understand it's hard. I handed out little slips at Bungay when Ms. Bruno was the assistant principal and Ms. Feige was the principal to vote on the budget. Not to vote yes or no, just get out and vote. I think what's most important and what people need to know, and I hope that they're listening if they're not here, because let's be honest, no offense, no one ever comes. And it's really sad because they all are, we put them in this position, we voted them in, and they work their butts off every month, just like Anne Marie does, just like our Board of Selectmen does, just like our Board of Finance does. But people would rather bash everybody online than look them in the eye and say, what are you going to do for me? So what I just want you to all know is that I will continue to fight for the Board of Ed as I live in Seymour, which I can't but I think it's important to also look at some of the things we've done previously. You know, when Jen Magri was on the board, she did have something on Facebook. She had a Q&A, she had a Did You Know page. It didn't get a lot of traffic. I think the problem is that people don't actually want to know. And I'm not speaking for anybody here, I'm speaking from what I see. People don't care that people are going to lose their jobs. People don't care that our kids are going to be the ones suffering. They'd rather just complain about it. So I will continue to fight for both the town and the education, because that's, even though my kid isn't in the school anymore, that's what we should do, because they are the future. And I hate when people say that they went to Seymour and they didn't get a good education. We have a kid going to Harvard this year. We have kids that go to, your son graduated from Tufts, right? I mean, we have these kids that are going to UConn and they're going to Georgetown, and they're going to a scholarship to FSU for a graduate program, free ride. You know?
Yale, MIT.
You know what I mean? Like, so if people are out there listening on YouTube or wherever they're listening, know that Seymour is a good school system. And Miss Bruno wouldn't still be here or on the board. Miss Harmling would still not. Look at Mr. Stramello. When I came into the school district, he was leaving as the principal of Bungee School. Bungee, as he always told me to say properly. So the reason why I came up here is because of the YouTube. You guys all know how I feel. I'm pretty open about that. You be quiet. Thank you.
And to piggyback on your comment,
Not only does and I wish Mr. Lucky was here, maybe Mr. Freund can help us out, but not only do we offer things to allow the children to go to colleges, we also have other programs and co-ops and whatnot that will let the students get into manufacturing, construction, and things like that.
Maybe you should shed a little light onto how those came to be in Seymour and what kind of people were responsible for bringing those in.
Well, we have an exemplary manufacturing program. Mr. Lucky, Mr. Floyd spearheaded that. Mr.
Those are
Lucky-
administrators, correct?
Yes,
Those are
our
principals that are working above
administrators
and
and-
beyond bringing programs
And
in. just
Mr.
for-
Lucky, I know Mr. Floyd might
I
want
never
to.
like to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
but, you know,
I mean, I can't address it all, but when I started in Seymour in 2004, we had 4 AP classes. We currently have 36 classes for college credit. And that's what we've developed over the last 19 years. We made a conscientious effort.
First year I became principal was the first time we had a kid get into Ivy League schools. Since then, we've been placing them in Ivy League schools. Seymour High School students over the last 10 years have been accepted to 17 of the 21 most difficult universities to get accepted into. We're incredibly proud of the kids. The way it works is once you get one kid into an Ivy, if they do well, the likelihood that you're going to get more into them, it becomes more likely because the school becomes known for that. And our kids are doing well. I mean, we have a full gamut in Seymour. We're not, you know, the Durgay, where there's a lot of wealth there. We are, you know, in many ways, Seymour is a blue-collar town, but we put a lot of energy into these efforts, to these kids, to make them incredibly successful, to make their future limitless. We have, right now, we're focusing on directly school to career opportunities for kids, because let's face it, college isn't the place for all the kids to go. Where many towns moved away from manufacturing, many towns moved away from the shops. The Board of Education and the town has been generous to allow us to maintain our shops. And right now, we're providing a vital service to the state of Connecticut. We're putting students directly into machine shops, manufacturing positions from high school. And we're incredibly proud of that as well as into medical fields through the Griffin Hospital. We have some of our students serve as Seymour EMTs. It would not be unusual if there was an emergency call for an ambulance going to your home in Seymour, there's going to be a Seymour High School student on that ambulance. We're incredibly proud of our kids and where they're going. And we
And
hope
also, I think too, the Commissioner of Education for the state of Connecticut, Commissioner Tucker, was very impressed. She visited our board office in Seymour High School. And the commissioner doesn't go to every school district in Connecticut, but we felt very proud, and she was very impressed. And one of her state board members was along for the tour as well. Super impressed with the manufacturing.
all right, any other questions?
Question, I have a comment. Tell me when we're there.
Questions now, Council? Anything this night?
You sure?
Mr. Sponheimer walking up, are you going to walk up?
I'll wait, I'll wait.
I can walk. You want to go up first?
No, no. Yeah.
Paul Sponheimer, 25 Falcon Drive. I just have one question, and maybe it's a question maybe we can answer it, I'm not sure. When did we start paying custodians for Saturdays and Sundays?
I think that goes back to previous contracts, maybe around 2000, was it 2014, Mr. Floyd?
It might have been. It was
Former athletic director?
during the time of the former athletic director and one of the former superintendents, yes. It was probably actually when we said
Particular reason?
2014.
Well, it's time and a half on Saturday, and
I understand what it costs now that it's been publicized. Go ahead. As opposed to if never was. All right, so what I'm saying is athletes were able to, coaches were able to access the school at no expense for the custodians, and those student athletes were able to participate.
At one time, the building, I know, was where
They
they
had sensors.
permitted that where you all could just
Right.
scan
You have
in and
cameras.
get in.
You have cameras in there now where you did not have them before. If you are not happy with the people that are in charge of those teams, which most of them go in and go outside, very few things go on inside.
It has nothing to do with the coaches under no circumstances, it's contractual, it's into the contractual agreement with the custodians about opening up the buildings. I don't know what year it started, I just know that I think it was probably, I don't know, I could be wrong, maybe it was around 2014.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't know when it started, but I will just speak for myself. I would not be in support of anything other than that.
And why would that be? Okay, I'm not.
It's people sue, live in a time where anyone will sue you for anything. If we don't have control over when people are in and out of our schools, we put ourselves at risk. And when we put ourselves as a Board of Education at risk, we put the whole community at risk because of liability issues. And I would also say, who gets the school ready for Monday morning when the students come? So for me, yes, it might be embedded in our contract, but it's something I would have supported if I was on the board when it happened, and it's something that I would support today. I don't think that people should be able to be in and out of the schools. It's too much of a risk.
Well, it went on up until 2014. Custodians came in on Monday morning, and they had a locker room to clean opposite. So, just a point of what was given up by the custodians to get a Saturday and a Sunday double time. Was anything given up in the negotiations?
Not sure. I'm sure there's a history to it and, you know, why it ended up being that way. I think many years ago when you coached and a lot of things now with just the security of the buildings and just the safety and the cleanup and over the years with so many teams. And I think this is done in a lot of buildings, in other states as well, where there's always a custodian in the building. But I'm not sure the exact year or when it was put in the contract. But we'll look, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Mrs. Bellavance?
Bear with me, all right? I'm sorry. Excuse me. Linda Bellavance, 7 Mosaic Road. Good evening, everyone. I don't have a question, I just have a couple of comments. As you all know, I work in the system, and so I'm kind of like in the thick of things all the time. And I have 2 suggestions that I'm just throwing out there. When you are going to make cuts, as it is, we're down to bare bones, trying to think out of the box, which I do with my job a good portion of my day. Where could we save money? And one of the suggestions that I have is that we combine middle school and high school bus runs. One run, same neighborhood, one bus driver, they get paid by the run. All you would have to do is either high school comes in 15 minutes later, or middle school comes in 15 minutes earlier, they ride on the same bus, you would save thousands upon thousands of dollars. If you sit at the high school in the afternoon and watch the buses drive away, and you see 8 bodies on a bus, you say, look at all that money that we're throwing away. And people are gonna say, oh, you've got to make room for everyone. It can be done. I work with buses all the time. It can be done. You might have to contract for another couple of buses to take care of all the runs, but you would reroute and you would save a lot of money. Just a suggestion. And then my next suggestion is that you still pay to play for our sports. Sports are extremely expensive, and when it comes to the school budget, you know, we shouldn't be cutting teachers. We should not be making children sit in a classroom with 10 or 12 extra students. We should not be cutting programs, reading programs, music teachers. That's what we're here for. We're here to educate the kids. And although, yes, we're here to provide sports, and I think we should still provide coaches and still have the sports, I do think that that is something that we have never, I don't think, ever looked into, that we should look into, because we are at the point that the town has forced you down to the bare bones. I mean, we are going to be so low on the rankings in the educational rankings for the state. It's not going to be funny, and it's only going to hurt the town. It's only, you know, in the long run, this is only going to hurt the town in more ways than one. So that's it. Those are my 2 suggestions, just throwing them out there if you're looking for ways to save a few dollars. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. In reference to the pay to play, it's not just the athletic side though, is it? It's everything. You would pay to participate in band or club or the electric.
If we decided to do a pay to participate model, I don't believe we would just limit it to
Right.
athletics. It would
So
be
you're talking-
all extracurriculars. But we
Right.
haven't had that discussion yet. We have to see how tomorrow goes.
Okay. No, I want to make sure that everybody understands we're not, as someone whose child benefited from sports in the school system, we're not just talking about sports. We're talking about all. So
It would be.
just keep that, you know, it's not, yes.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Ann Rodriguez, 111 Middle Benham Road. I have to commend this board. It is not easy. It is not easy to be an elected official and to watch the Facebook pages and not want to comment. It's not easy to watch other people get slandered either. I do have to say, as being on the board, this is probably one of the toughest budget years that I have ever sat on, being on the Board of Selectmen through, you know, Bob Kay, Paul Roy, and Kurt Miller. I've got questions about the charter changes, and I know that when Selectman Roy was the first selectman, we tried to put a charter change through. I think Mr. Bohuniak was on the board as well, or was it with Kurt Miller? But was it with Kurt Miller? It got denied. They wouldn't even change because of grammatical errors. So to get people involved, you know, we need changes for people to come to the meetings. I think when I took over as first selectwoman, I started posting when all our meetings were, thinking that would get more people involved. And then it turned down to, well, can you tell us what happened at the meeting? So it went from me posting when the meetings were to, hey, this is what happened to the meeting, to, hey, how come the meeting minutes haven't been posted? And to your point, you're right. People want us to give them the information. And what I'm finding out about this budget process is they want it to be handed to them. Everybody can go on Facebook and comment, but I don't see half the people here that have commented on either the First Selectwoman's page, Seymour CT page, Seymour Community page, or the Board of Ed page. It takes a lot of guts to sit behind the table, to sit on a chair, to be an elected official, to sit on a committee, to bring businesses in town. You know, we had the Newport Academy wanting to come in, and all those meetings. People read, businesses read what is being posted on Facebook before they come into a town, believe it or not. We've had 2 major companies want to come into town that have backed out. We can't bring businesses into town if people are not wanting to open their minds. We as a community have to look outside the box. You know, Dr. Compton, you and I, Dr. Bull have had the conversation about the special needs and what we can do about regionalizing.
Dr. Wall. Yes.
Dr. Bull, what we can do about regionalizing with the valley.
Yes.
What can we do? We're gonna talk to the other mayors, we're gonna talk to the state and see if Seymour can be a leader in that and maybe possibly using one of our schools, and that will help us. But we have to start thinking outside the box. On the pay to play, you know, I don't believe in that. Because, I'll tell you why, if a parent or a family cannot afford to pay higher taxes, they're not, or may not be able to pay to have their child participate. And sometimes that is what a child needs. They need that constant feeling to be a part of something, to help them emotionally, mentally, physically. So I just want to commend this board to what you're doing. Thank you. And let's just hope tomorrow we have a good turnout, more than the 1,300 people out of the 13,000 people that could vote, come out and vote. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Allison Brett, 11 Stanley Drive, and as I always say, a very proud special education teacher and elementary inclusion facilitator for Seymour Public Schools. I question, when looking at the budget revisions, and I thank you so much for coming, I question what other discussions were had prior to looking at some of the revisions. It upsets me to see a BCBA, it upsets me to see a music teacher, because at the end of the day, that impacts our children, and it impacts them greatly. And to say, you know, working in the special education department, seeing the needs, being on the daily grind every day with our students, you know, they are probably one of my first go-tos is our BCBAs, consulting, trying to figure out what we're doing, how we're going to move these children forward, and how we're going to handle some of the behaviors that impact our students on a daily basis. So I do question what some of the other preliminary conversations were had when looking at the budget. I agree on the busing. I see the buses on a daily basis also. I see the buses come up my street in the morning when I'm coming in from my walk or something else, like garbage or whatever, and there's only 2 kids and one other kid is getting on the bus and it's the high school run at 6:55 on Stanley Drive. I see it on a daily basis. So I do question that and wondering if that's a possibility in regards to it. So I guess my question is, what were some of the other preliminary conversations I've had?
Well, the busing is something we've talked about. I don't think there's much we can do this year. And honestly, when it comes to cuts, everything that we've proposed is in here. We haven't had much choice for other things. I don't know if anybody else can think of anything that we've talked about.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth, Allison, but I think the question is, how did we arrive at the decision to cut a music teacher and to cut the half BCBA? So the music teacher was because of lack of enrollment in music courses. We didn't have enough students to warrant keeping that teacher. In an ideal world, we would have used them in some other way. But because there was not a lot of enrollment and we had the budget crisis, we made a decision that this made sense to do. In terms of the BCBA, we talked about that. We understand the needs of special education, and in collaboration with Dr. Compton, Dr. Compton was speaking we were told that these needs would be covered. As you know, sometimes we can move things from the town budget that we all vote on to a federal grant, the IDEA grant. So our understanding as a board in conversation was that that was not going to create a gap. And that's all I
Right, and also speak to the situation with the music teacher, again, based upon the numbers with the high school. Then we came up with the idea to share a music teacher, a vocal person with the middle school, and do so many classes mainly at the middle school, and then try to still cover 2 classes at the high school. It's a tough decision, but based upon where we were, if something had to be cut, then based upon the needs and the kids that were signing up, we didn't have any choice. I mean, I also have been a former music teacher and have 2 degrees in music, and it was hard to cut it. But we didn't have a choice at the time. We had to look specifically, how could we think out of the box and try to kind of do both the best we could. In regards to the BCBA, there's been an ongoing discussion. I also have an idea, thinking out of the box, of some other ideas how to support BCBA services. We're going to continue to just look at the budget and see if there's any other areas that where we can move money back in to that area.
Thank you.
Okay?
Anyone else?
Give you a couple seconds to think about it. All right. Any last call for questions? All right, moving on to item 4, public comment. I think everybody's kind of talked, but is there any other public comment? Public comment going twice. Public comment, third call. All right, we'll move on to item 5, which is the education budget 23-24, and it looks like on page 9, slide 18. Looks like Dr. Compton, you are suggesting the $40,000 in electricity after the rollback of rates, and the bus fuel, which I'm guessing is from the per gallon cost
Right.
that we've achieved, which is actually less than what we're paying this year per gallon. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
And
Mr. Bucci had done the final calculation in regards with that, and that's how we came up with that amount.
So like with the other budgets, I would recommend we possibly wait until tomorrow's vote before. We're gonna have to come back again anyway. If the budget passes, to adopt that budget or approve and decide what we're gonna do with cuts. But I'll open the floor for other thoughts.
So when I first saw these recommendations, I was like, really? We're just gonna, randomly cut? And now I'm hearing that it's based on new information, and I think that is something that is so important for people to understand, because it's easy to pick on some of our decreases and be like, oh, well, they were hoarding that $100,000 in custodian overtime, and it's almost like a cushion, and that's not the case, right? We put together our initial budget in January, right? Look what happened with health insurance. We thought health insurance was gonna go up like 19% because that's the information we had in January. In January, we weren't willing to cut custodian overtime because we'd only been in the year for 4 months. But as we go on, we get more and more confident in the things that we can do without. But there is sacrifice to be made, even in the custodians with the weekend thing. So I just wanted to put it out there because my initial reaction, if it's anything like maybe some people in the public is going to be like, oh, well, that's not anything. But I hope the public isn't trying to inflict harm on the school district, right? And that they will be satisfied with that this is a win. We got new information, recent information. We can lower these costs, and that's a good thing.
Anything else? Okay. If there's nothing else, move on to item 6, which is reports. I'll be brief. I know some of us have to get out of here. I wanted to point out, I don't know how many people came to the Memorial Day parade, but in the 13 years I've lived in Seymour, I don't think I've seen such low participation. And I want to remind everybody that I think a lot of the infighting between residents, Board of Ed, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, the Madam Select Woman here, I struggle to see that. I think that had a part of why the participation of the viewing was so low. I think we're starting to create a culture of, of not caring about the town anymore. It's, let's just vote no, let's vote everything down, and we'll see what happens if there's money for that parade next year, or any of the other things, or the 100, what is it, 50?
Memorial Day parade is based on donations that the events committee receives. It's the Christmas parade and the fireworks and the downtown trick or trunk. Santa Claus coming off the bus.
The train.
Train. Train.
It's usually a bus these days.
Maybe a bus.
Next year might be.
But those are the things that are funded by the town, and one person on Facebook had said, we'll just stop having all the funds, why should we pay for the fund? Well, it's because that is part of our life, that is part of our social sphere, is by doing this, enjoying one's life. But I would agree with you, there was a very low turnout. I had to do the Shelton Jury Parade, and I also had to do the Oxford Parade. And I can tell you the turnout in Oxford was huge. That parade was 45 minutes long. And I'm like, wow. It is. We have to somehow find a way together to bring everybody back together. And I didn't mean to interrupt your.
No, that's fine. I'm just glad you noticed it too. 'Cause
Remember, if anybody will come back to the days of COVID, what was it during COVID? We're all getting through this together. We're all in it together. Drive the kids around looking for teddy bears. Let's do the parades. We were all one. We were there for each other. And now it just seems we can't wait to stab a person in the back or slander their name on Facebook or go after their child. What happened to those days? The Seymour I know now is not the Seymour that caused me to move into it. This reminds me of Bedford Falls, right? It's a wonderful life. Everybody cares about everybody. And now and I understand, the economy's a lot different. It's hurting everybody. I get it. But it wouldn't hurt you to smile and say, thank you, or have a good day. We just have to figure out how we can bring it all back together. And, Chairman Champagne, I'm there to work with you. Let's figure it out.
we'll figure something out.
And as adults, we need to be role models for our children. We really do. The kindness, the love, the support, and just showing gratitude for mankind. It's important, and I think a lot of places have lost that. It's okay to disagree. Yes, everybody needs the freedom of speech to express, but.
What do I say? In a world where you could be anything, be kind.
Oh, you say that.
I do. I've been.
I know, it's a hugely popular phrase.
But I've been saying it to my kids constantly, right? No one's ever told that to me. The other things that I wanted to point out, because you brought up COVID, Dr. Compton has done a great job with the COVID monies where we haven't had to rely on hiring to replace those. We've used a lot of that money for coaches, short-term things.
Academic coaches, I should
Academics,
clarify.
yes, sorry, academic coaches. Some of the other cost control things we've done is
HVAC too, we did.
the HVAC, yeah.
Yes.
The high school is now air conditioned. Got a thumbs up. The overtime for custodians has to be approved now? That was
Well,
something.
it's decreased a lot. I'm very proud of our custodian staff. They do an excellent job at all the schools. But we just, after COVID, please understand during COVID, and Mr. Mucci has complete analysis in all of this, during COVID, you had to spray and clean everything and disinfect. You know, they had to just constantly clean. And there was a lot of overtime involved during that time, and there were paid ESSER monies to do that. So as a decrease of the cost, we now have a complete handle on that because the board's holding Mr. Bucci and myself and Mr. Connors accountable into making sure if overtime, that overtime is justified.
And then the other piece is the purchase order.
Yes,
Purchase
everybody
order-
has to have a purchase order, including if I want something, I gotta have a purchase order. You've gotta follow the process.
That's it for my end. Anything else? No, you tired?
No, I just appreciate everybody that came out tonight, and if you have questions, give us a call. Come to the board office, we'll talk to you.
Any board comments?
If I could, I would appreciate it. Thank you. There's also been talk of, you need to follow the budget, you need to know where the money goes, and I just wanted to share with the public, if they didn't know, that we have a finance committee meeting every month before our regular meeting. Every month, we get a printout of the checks that were cut, we get an updated accounting for what has been spent that month, how we're tracking against our budget, how much is encumbered, where Mr. Bucci feels we have to move money out of an encumbrance and not do something that we had planned in order to pick up a shortfall somewhere else. So I know that there's been a lot of comments about how we're not accountable for that. Well, we absolutely are. We look at those numbers every single month. So if anybody feels like coming early at 7 o'clock instead of at 7:30, welcome to join us.
And that's the other piece too, is, when, I lost my train of thought, I'll come back. Do you have
I have
anything?
nothing.
Ed?
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble, but I'm gonna say vote yes for both budgets tomorrow.
Amen.
And if they get mad at me as a Board of Education member, I could care less at this point in my life. Vote yes for both budgets tomorrow.
Just on a positive note, I would encourage people, as we're talking about having people come to our meetings, if you really want to see something magical, come to the meeting on June 5th. It's our end of the year award ceremony and celebration. It really is a celebration, and whoever's listening or Facebook, whatever, anybody that is welcome, and it really is one of the most powerful things that you can see in this school district is from the accomplishments of those who may be retiring from our district to those people who, excel in the classroom in our top 10 to students who are excelling in different projects throughout the school year. So again, I personally would like to invite anybody that's out there listening to come join us for that, and you can really see what our district is all about.
And that one, Mr. Lazarick, is in there, because a lot of people call me that one.
I would just add, part of the disappointing dialogue around this process this year is the whole, the Board of Ed is everything for the kids, but doesn't care about the seniors. And as I've argued on Facebook, it's the same family. Our children and our seniors are from the same families. We are one community, and we should be a community that's great to grow up in. I know it was for my children, and I want it to be great to grow old in for my husband and I. So I think we have to remember that when we engage with each other and make these decisions.
Final thoughts?
Sure. It's more of a generalization. It's really easy to be angry and mad online. It's really easy to fight online. It's fun sometimes. And I'm often struck and sometimes a little bit angry, because where my brain goes when I'm fighting with people online, I meet them in public, or somebody disarms you with like a nice comment, and you realize that, oh, people are usually way nicer in person and way more friendly, and it's like, damn it, I kind of like that person even though you're just fighting with them. And that's something that we lose a lot when we spend all of our time looking at Facebook for 5 minutes to try to throw a bomb at something and logging off. So I don't know if anyone would agree with this. I tend to be nicer in person. I'm sure everybody that I've ever argued with online is nicer in person than they are online. So that's just another reason to try to come and do a little face-to-face. It's the only way you're ever going to find common ground.
Anybody else?